We are at the dawn potentially of solar cycle 25, according to spaceweather.com. That's what we're going to be talking about today. Going to be talking about the forecast for solar cycle 25, also an overview to some of the information that I'm sharing regarding the sun. At the moment of recording, we have a total solar eclipse coming to completion. Maybe you experienced a roller coaster of emotions along with planet Earth. Interesting things taking place in Portland, Oregon after a violent, unjustified attack on a journalist. We saw the aftermath of a tornado going through Portland for at least a mile, right? As some sort of a funnel cloud is also filmed and uploaded to the internet. What on earth is taking place at this time? Solar cycle 25. Okay, so we're going to start there. NASA recently reported 2025 as the expected peak year for sunspots. They are concerned about the cycle disrupting their Moon and Mars missions. They claim this forecast model shows the weakest cycle in 200 years. The maximum of this cycle, measured in terms of sunspot numbers, could be 30 to 50% lower than the more recent one. The sun's grand conveyor belt speed has been a factor that NASA's also looked at in the past to try to predict the cycle intensity. The weakening of the Earth's magnetic field intensifies the solar radiation effect during various parts of the cycle. According to the SWPC, the maximum will strike no earlier than 2023 and no later than 2026, with a minimum peak sunspot numbers of 95 and a maximum of 130. The panel expects the end of cycle 24 and the start of cycle 25 to occur no earlier than July of 2019 and no later than September of 2020. So I'm reading facts from a recent analysis prediction for sunspot cycle 25 that recently came out of NASA. For years, I've talked to you about 2025. Now NASA is confirming that's where the peak is, but there could be signs, for example, like I just mentioned from spaceweather.com, of the new magnetic polarity of the cycle. Before the maximum starts, the cycle can start. So it starts off slowly from a minimum, not very many sunspots, for example, before it even gets to the ascent of the solar cycle leading up to the peak. And I do believe that election energies play on the solar cycles and will again. I say that as an independent. And so both Democrats and Republicans could be caught up in the energies coming from the sun directed to political. So there's a mindful and unmindful way to deal with the excess of energies, right? We should always leave time for things that are spiritual, that are of a deeper nature. So let me get to the next part. I'm going to be reading several pages here. It is an honor of mine to share this information with the world as it becomes more receptive in recent years to this knowledge as we approach solar cycle 25. I'm an independent thinker taking a look at the changes in the sun, utilizing both scientific studies but other clues, such as my own personal experiences and sensitivity itself to the changes in our reality. I am not an expert, yet I'm also clarifying the uniqueness of the position that I'm taking on how the global powers that be use the solar cycle against us. And it's my own working thesis. It's still an evolution, but the idea or seed sprouted over a decade ago. I also look at how we might cope with the intensity of the times, both now and what awaits us. I'm going to add another thing right here. There is news right now of various random attacks, whereas the people don't even know each other. Random sucker punches, things of this nature, parents hurting their children, and then the news in Portland doing a story on increased person-to-person crimes. This is exactly what Alex Ansary warned you about. If you take a close look at my content and my warnings, even recent videos, reminding you of Alexander Chizetsky, people like Raymond Wheeler, and others, that have given dire warnings of the future. Look at where we are. We are focusing our attention on the human behavior response not only in solar flares, but ongoing changes to our planet's magnetic field, of which we are all connected to. 5G may complicate mental health problems greatly as solar cycle 25 gets ready to begin and to peak in 2025. How will this affect human health when the doses of radiation are expected to be so high with frequencies in upwards of 100 gigahertz? Our natural brainwave state is about 7.83 hertz and is synced with the frequency of the Earth's magnetic field. Past researchers like Alexander Chizhevsky out of Russia 100 years ago built us a template, a blueprint that society for the most part didn't catch on to, hasn't caught on to. But I'm suggesting that the global powers that be have. They have caught on to the fact that geomagnetic activity and warlike behavior, including mindless street fighting, is intertwined. Certain places on the planet, for example, based on the magnetism, you're going to see more things go down there. And we are. I believe this knowledge has been weaponized over time against free people everywhere by tyrants everywhere, holding on to occultic knowledge, ultimately misusing the mysteries of the sun. Intelligence agencies in particular may even have psychological warfare programs that run key operations on social media during key parts of the cycle. Instead of being aligned with the sun, including morally, kingdoms on earth throughout time have been known to wage wars without good purpose or meaning, causing some to wonder if those lives lost during war, are in reality another form of old world human sacrifice. This is the perfect time to review several scientific studies that indicate a human behavioral consciousness response, subconsciously at least, to changes in the magnetic field. Look at the study from Caltech and the University of Tokyo. While some humans may be experiencing a positive consciousness shift during fast field changes, others might respond in negative ways. Years of introspective thought on this general topic while living full-time in nature after living full-time in the city, right, has led me to conclude that many people respond less consciously and more violently when there are changes to the magnetic field. The energies of the city seem to complicate the human energy body and brainwave frequency, while nature itself contains less disharmonic frequencies. Doesn't mean that it's perfect. Doesn't mean that we're necessarily having a great time. It means that we're dealing with less harmonic frequencies. Doesn't mean that there aren't, lingering things out there that emanate fields. Trees, by the way, are very healing. They're good for oxygen. So there may be some places, right, where there's just, no trees. I'm free-flowing a little bit in addition to the prepared script, but I want to help some of you understand. I think that there's a reason why some places in America might be really low energy and some places might be high energy, and it's not as simple as just whether it's nature or not. It's other factors as well. How much artificial technology is there, as well as the level of consciousness of the people that reside in that place, what they're focused on. Okay. So I'm going over examples also in the world of unconscious violent behavior. Oh, and look at this. A storm came. That's interesting in light of everything that I've spoken to you about regarding so many different things. Wow, look at the timing to storms affecting certain places on the planet when there's a certain level of uptick of human violence, cause and effect. It's all interconnected. Now picture a sleepy little town somewhere out there in America and picture the moment that a seemingly well-adjusted college kid takes a firearm and picks a total stranger outside a bar to target, maybe, say, 2:30. And picture the reality that this wasn't a super common crime for the area, but it did occur right as a geomagnetic storm was occurring. Yeah, baby. How often do you notice a geomagnetic storm in your town the moment a major brawl went down? And I mean, a situation where maybe you live in Pleasantville, where there are no major brawls. You've never seen one. Well, till tonight, or whatever night, or a shooting. The reality is, this is reality. A real headline that occurred during a real geomagnetic storm and an unknowing population, which kind of adds to the horror film theme, as it's scary seeing society unable to see its own trends. Repeating history, another cycle of human violence, from the more mindless and randomized to the more organized and focused. Another geomagnetic storm in May of 2019 coincided with a man lighting himself on fire outside the White House. The man, the man, the man is on fire. The man is on fire. Hot damn. When the sun gets hot, so do we, in more ways than one. So check this out. Talks of war with Iran intensified after the June 14th geomagnetic storm, which came alongside a oil tanker explosion. That's an important correlation. Unknown to, I'm pretty sure, everyone. Did you know this? I mean, you guys are viewers, so you're familiar with the geomagnetic storm link that I've drawn out. I'm sure some of you on the very day of it were like, wow, hot damn, Alex Ansary is talking about geomagnetic storms, and here we have an Iran situation. Or did I have to articulate that there was a correlation? The goal is, my friends, is for you to automatically, whether I'm doing a video or not, okay, be able to remember the key things that I shared with you on this channel. Okay? Key focuses. Do you know what they are? Okay. Every one of you should at least be able to paraphrase, even if you disagree with me, the key themes on this channel and its relation to the sun and the angle that I'm adding to the conversation about the sun. I mean, we don't have to get spiritual with it. Let's just be scientific. But even from a scientific perspective and a correlation, here I am drawing upon scientific studies and people like Alexander Chizensky. It's not just his name that's difficult to say, it's getting all of his research. A lot of it's in Russian. The information that I have is ideal for the people that are hired to handle certain hotlines, the mental health field, law enforcement, hospital work, people that work with the public, right? In some cases, put themselves at risk because they're working with the public. A lot of people in the audience don't necessarily have to work with the public. I don't necessarily have to work with the public, but I speak to the public about controversial spiritual issues, and that can be problematic. That can be problematic. And so what's the solution? The solution is to find out how to free ourselves as we deal with this post-eclipse reality. We can work to try to help each other here and there. I know I've done my best to try to help, but ultimately we got to help ourselves spiritually to come closer to God. In many ways, the Almighty is the only one that can do for us what other humans won't do, even others that profess or claim to believe in God, while claiming to judge someone else's faith or lack of faith from their perspective. It's a real complicated time. Going back to the report, what's missing from the national and local dialogue is the sun's presence and noticeable change in one way or another as people flip out, sometimes in real time, to the sun's cyclical pole shift. So flashback, right? So I want you to walk away from this video more informed than you walked into it. We saw a 2013 to 2014 polar vortex and the cycle's double peak, because it wasn't just a singular peak. The previous solar max cycles, solar max portion saw a double peak. So 2013, 2015, even though the cycle started up 2009, get a little more active, 2010, 2011, a couple strong blasts. The peaks were more around 2013, 2015. In fact, there might even be a mild triple peak there if we count 2011. But double peak, for that cycle, while they're predicting a primary peak of 2025 for the upcoming cycle, which means things could really be intense in the concentration of those years, 6 years from now. Why do I show you slides from 2013? Because they're more significant now than when they were made. They were like made way in advance for the 2020s. That's why. Various parts of the cycle cause shifts in human psychology, whether the cycle is going up, going down, peaking, as well as the influences that the cosmic rays may play on human psychology or behavior. There's a new report on cosmic rays that I'll bring to you. We do know that there are health risks associated with cosmic rays and radiation. As far as studies on cosmic rays and behavioral patterns, not so much. But as we see the unrest go up, again, take a look at what went down in Portland recently and the national outrage, right? Take a look at that ridiculous behavior. Then go over to spaceweather.com and realize since 2015, cosmic rays have gone up 18%. How are we not affected if they've linked it to cancer? Why would we not be affected? Yeah, solar minimums aren't boring or quiet. Not boring at all. They're full of quite a bit of drama. So it's always been my goal, which I fulfilled a part of it, right? But I was only able to get so much out in the interview. To get the ideas out in front of the most people so they can be helped with the information, so they can realize that there are causal factors, maybe keep themselves in check when they get super emotional, when they get the war fever. Maybe realize even that the powers that be are leading them to certain behaviors, and they don't have to go along with it. That's been a big part of the Alex Ansary message for 10 years. The people worldwide, you don't have to go along with this, with the stage-managed realities that are coming, and the potential drafts. You don't have to go along with it. We are being swept up into a war fever that is coming in the same way that the hand of clock comes and brings us the reality of the 2 minutes to midnight. So the public needs to come across this knowledge. Whoever shares it with them, the studies are there. I didn't do the studies. There's an actual correlation even to depressions and recessions during the solar maximum period, which goes back decades. The recession, the late 70s, early 80s. The recession, late 80s, early 90s, during also solar maximum. The recession after the dot-com bubble of the 90s and 2000, again during the solar maximum. The recession, post-aftermath, Baker bailout, hard time getting jobs, other economic issues, cost of living, 2011, 2012, 2013, and the creep. The economic collapse creeper effect keeps creeping. Sometimes things get a little bit quiet and plush for some people, but it's an overall economic decline. And so anywhere from law enforcement to hospital workers to the mental health field, they can all use this information, but more specifically, journalists from the mainstream to the independent that specialize in covering human affairs and major world events. Without the context of the solar cycle, major coverage of world events seem empty. I'm bringing a perspective to world events that isn't being presented by others. As wars have been shown to be cyclical due to the human behavior response, the microcosm of that is fighting in the streets and all-around issues regarding violence, public safety, women's safety. Certain forms of person-to-person crimes in certain regions may sharply see a rise as the cycle rises. This is what the data indicates. So here's something else. As we see a deep solar minimum, we see a weakening of the heliosphere, which protects our solar system from cosmic rays and other forms of radiation. Now that we're getting scientific studies saying that our field is being impacted by other things, how might the violent society psychosis be influenced by other fields impacting our planet other than the sun? You know where I'm getting at? You know the picture I'm trying to paint in your mind's eye? In this post-eclipse down to the minute reality as this podcast is being recorded? That there are other fields impacting our reality? other fields, unknown influences impacting the Earth. And we are connected to the field of the Earth. On a larger scale, but maybe not so far as national or global, there might be pockets of uprising or heightened militant activity or related media content leaning to one extreme direction or another, regardless of country of origin. The level of magnetism of that region, high or low, is suspected to play some kind of a role, in my opinion, in how some humans might respond more emotionally or dramatically. Now, this is also key. Susceptibility to changes in the zero contour lines is described by Greg Braden as he describes the West. I'm not a fan of his other work per se, but this I feel you got to hear. That's why I put in my ebook. Greg Braden describes the West Coast as being a place of high change, for better or for worse, because of the magnetics of the region compared to that of the Midwest, a place of slower change, different magnetism. And I'm going to say for better or for worse. We could see the high and the low points of each of these places we may have lived and contemplate some of the reasons why the vibe might change over time in key parts of the cycle. For example, Oregon's going to feel a certain way during certain years. Colorado's going to feel energetically, people aside, a certain way during certain years, especially in certain mountain range areas. You look at, like, say, Denver versus mountain range areas, there's a various levels of magnetism throughout, for example, parts of Colorado. And so that has a specific influence over certain things, as it will in other places. Specifically, how some places might feel either more relaxing or stressful during key periods. Okay, so just like the waxing and the waning of a moon, and people responded to the different phases of the moon, right? And including at high elevation. Oh, I'm very much connected to the moon from this location. It's a big deal. It's a big deal to be this close to the stars and to be feeling these powerful cosmic forces coursing through my veins and blood. To not be at sea level where I was born, to be in the mountain range area, right? To be breathing less oxygen, but to be closer to these celestial bodies, closer to them than other humans. It's a trip. Some are more sensitive to magnetic changes than others for reasons not fully disclosed by science, but they likely have discovered something. Now, I believe that the global nefarious forces of control, known and unknown, operating from government and operating from that which is beyond government, do purposely run programs or stage manage events to whip the masses up into a violent frenzy. And I believe there's a pattern of manipulation and a general consensus on certain key historical events that have questionable official stories, some that lead to war, invasion, or worse. And we're talking about invasion of a military kind with tanks, just to clear up confusion. Some questions relate to the funding of both sides of conflicts. Even the redirecting of uprising and revolutions are likely by carefully crafted design based on some deeper knowledge of human psychology, how to really push our emotional buttons into a point of reacting in a certain way. This is problem, reaction, solution today. The information that we receive from the likes of Anthony Sutton and others suggests a world history of manipulations at key parts of the cycle. It has been alleged that the Russian revolutions were manipulated by Western bankers that played both sides. It would be ironic also that this period of the beginning of World War I coincided with both a strong solar cycle and the emergence of new scientific technological discoveries globally regarding the sun to so many other things under the sun. The age that brought us Chizhevsky also brought Einstein and Velikovsky. All this information leads us to examining the potential realities here on Earth, leading up to the next solar cycle peak of 2025 as tensions with China and Russia may explode in a full-scale world war. Will patterns throughout history of sunspots and wars continue as we approach the 2000s, the 2020s? Why wouldn't they? Knowing that cycles repeat, knowing that history repeats, especially those that forget it, how do we properly prepare in mind, body, and spirit for what's to come? Solar Wars 2025 is coming into focus. If there's a way that we can avert a crisis in our own lives, we turn to the Creator for guidance in helping both others as well as ourselves to survive the coming changes, which may include the next wave of international battles and frenzied killing sprees. If you appreciate this content and information, check out Patreon. The link is down below.